Genesis 18. A son is promised to Sarah. The Lord appeared again to Abraham near the oak grove belonging to Mamre. One day Abraham was sitting at the entrance of his tent during the hottest part of the day. He looked up and noticed 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he ran to meet them and welcomed them, bowing low to the ground. Alright, so see some visitors and gets very excited. My Lord, he said, if it pleases you, stop here for a while. Rest in the shade of this tree while water is brought to wash your feet. And since you've honored your servant with this visit, let me prepare some food to refresh you before you continue on your journey. All right, they said, do as you have said. So Abraham ran back to the tent and said to Sarah, hurry, get 3 large measures of your best flour, knead it into dough, and bake some bread. Then Abraham ran out of the herd and chose a tender calf and gave it to his servant, who quickly prepared it. When the food was ready, Abraham took some yogurt and milk and roasted meat, and he served it to the men. As they ate, Abraham waited on them in the shade of the trees. Yeah, definitely reminds me of like the Israeli or Arab shopkeepers that you walk in there and they will keep you there as long as necessary, give you tea and everything else just until you buy something. Where is Sarah, your wife? The visitors asked. She's inside the tent, Abraham replied. Then one of them said, I will return to you about this time next year, and your wife Sarah will have a son. Sarah was listening to this conversation from the tent. Abraham and Sarah were both very old at this time, and Sarah was long past the age of having children. So she laughed silently to herself and said, how could a worn-out woman like me enjoy such pleasure, especially when my master, my husband, is also so old? Then the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh? Why did she say, can an old woman like me have a baby? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return about this time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah was afraid, so she denied it, saying, I didn't laugh. But the Lord said, no, you did laugh. Interesting. Again, the Lord talking directly to Sarah, especially kind of impromptu right here. This last part down here kind of exemplifies maybe what this is going for. At least for me, this is kind of the humorously kind of the hubris of man's realm versus God's realm of Sarah saying she did not laugh when the Lord says, no, you did laugh. That even if you deny something in man's realm, if you say you did not do something, there is an objective reality of what did happen. And that is often a conflict where people will lie about something and deny it forever, but even if they get away with it, it doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean that there is an objective world that that person did do something wrong that they're now lying about, or whatever it may be. And so this is Sarah kind of downing it based off age, which is a God's realm issue. Yeah, so just a split that even if a tree falls and no one's around to hear it, it doesn't make a sound. In my opinion, yes, there is an objective reality where there is still sound waves being emitted, even if no one is there to see it. And in this case, yes, even if you lie about it and say you don't laugh, if you did laugh, God knows you did actually laugh. You did actually laugh. That's the objective world, and you did objectively laugh. All right. Abraham intercedes for Sodom. Then the men got up from their meal and looked out towards Sodom. As they left, Abraham went with them to send them on their way. Shall I hide my plan from Abraham, the Lord asked? For Abraham will surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed through him. I've singled him out so that he will direct his sons and their families to keep the ways of the Lord by doing what is right and just. Then I will do for Abraham all that I have promised. So the Lord told Abraham, I've heard of great outcry from Sodom and Gomorrah because their sin is so flagrant. I'm going down to see if their actions are as wicked as I have heard. If not, I want to know. Interesting, because you assume God's all-knowing, so he needs intel officers to go find out. He needs scouts. The other men turned and headed toward Sodom, but the Lord remained with Abraham. Abraham approached him and said, will you sweep away both the righteous and the wicked? Suppose you find 50 righteous people living there in the city. Will you still sweep it away and not spare it for their sakes? Surely you wouldn't do such a thing, destroying the righteous along with the wicked. Why, you would be treating the righteous and the wicked exactly the same. Surely you wouldn't do that. Should not the judge of all the earth do what is right? And the Lord replied, if I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the entire city for their sake. All right, the first compromise with God. Interesting. So Abraham bargains with God that if there are 50 good people, and he's going to bring it down to as few as he can, that will God spare the city. And it's an interesting back and forth between man's realm and God's realm, where it seems like there is natural law in God's realm that if everyone's in chaos and sin in one location of the city will fall apart. As we're seeing in various cities around the world and in the United States. But the idea of you being able to bargain with God is an interesting phenomenon. And that might be where the made in God's image comes around, where man's realm is able to modify God's realm eventually. And this is kind of a good example of that, metaphorically at first, or literally. I don't know what's happening exactly here. But being able to bargain with God's realm. It's like, okay, so God's realm wants to keep us all on our feet and not let us leave Earth. Well, what if we bargain with it and we find a way of pushing against gravity and getting out of here? It's sort of the modern day one equivalent of this, of being able to bargain with God's realm. It seems like things are naturally going to be set a certain way. And it's like, maybe we can work on something. In this case, it's much more inside of man's realm, where it's good people versus mostly bad people. Then Abraham spoke again. Since I had begun, let me speak further to my Lord, even though I am but dust and ashes. Suppose there are only 45 righteous people rather than 50. Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? And the Lord said, I will not destroy it if I can find 45 righteous people in there. And Abraham pressed his request further. Suppose there are only 40. And the Lord replied, I will not destroy it for the sake of the 40. Please don't be angry, my Lord, Abraham pleaded. Let me speak. Suppose only 30 righteous people. So he's tiptoeing. He's like, each one having a preface. So just, please don't kill me, God. And the Lord replied, I will not destroy it if I find 30. Then Abraham said, since I have dared to speak to the Lord, let me continue. Oh, yeah, once humans find out they can modify God's realm, they get a little hooked on it, don't they? Yeah. Suppose there are only 20. At least he's being trepid about it, as he should be, with messing with God's realm. Be very careful, and always preface it with, like, since I'm daring to go further, can we hopefully get a little further? And the Lord replied, then I will not destroy it for the sake of the 20. Finally, Abraham said, Lord, please don't be angry with me if I speak one more time. Suppose only 10 are found. And the Lord replied, then I will not destroy it for the sake of the 10. When the Lord had finished his conversation with Abraham, he went on his way, and Abraham returned to his tent. All right, Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed. That evening, the two angels came to the entrance of the city of Sodom. That's right, these two gangsters. Lot was sitting there when he saw them. He stood up to meet them. Then he welcomed them and bowed with his face to the ground. My lords, he said, come to my home to wash your feet and be my guests for the night. You may then get up early in the morning and be on your way again. Oh no, they replied, we'll just spend the night out here in the city square. But Lot insisted. So at last they went home with them. Lot prepared a feast for them, complete with fresh bread made without yeast. I wonder the significance of that is. And they ate. Before they retired for the night, all the men of Sodom, young and old, came from all over the city and surrounded the house. They shouted to Lot, where are the men who came to spend the night with you? Bring them out to us so we can have sex with them. Okay, well, the sins were blatant enough. So Lot stepped outside to talk to them, shutting the door behind him. Please, my brothers, he begged, don't do such a wicked thing. Look, I have 2 virgin daughters. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do with them as you wish. But please, leave these men alone, for they are my guests, and they are under my protection. Alright, I'm sure most people modern day look at that and be like, WTF. As if weighing out the sodomizing of 2 guests is the greater sin than having your 2 virgin daughters taken from you. Maybe that's more reflective of the value system back then, but I'm trying to think if there's anything deeper here. Stand back, they shouted. This fellow came to town as an outsider, and now he's acting like our judge. We'll treat you far worse than those other men. And they lunged toward Lot to break down the door. But the two angels reached out, pulled Lot into the house, and bolted the door. When they blinded all the men, young and old, who were at the door of the house, so they gave up trying to get inside. Then they blinded all the men. How'd they blind all the men? Okay. I guess they are angels, but let me think about them. Who were at the door of the house, so they gave up trying to get inside. Poke them with sticks, a bright light, what? I don't know. Meanwhile, the angels questioned Lot. Do you have any other relatives here in the city? They asked. Get them out of this place, your sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or anyone else, for we are about to destroy this city completely. The outcry against this place is so great it has reached the Lord, and he has sent us to destroy it. So Lot rushed out to tell his daughters, fiancés, quick, get out of the city. The Lord is about to destroy it. But the young men thought he was only joking. At dawn the next morning, the angels became insistent. Hurry, they said to Lot, take your wife and your two daughters who are here. Get out right now, or you will be swept away in the destruction of the city. When Lot still hesitated, the angel seized his hand and the hands of his wife and two daughters and rushed them to safety outside the city, for the Lord was merciful. When they were safely out of the city, one of the angels ordered, run for your lives. Don't look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Escape to the mountains, or you will be swept away behind cover in the mountains. Yeah, don't stop anywhere in the valley. Yeah, don't be in a clear space. This is about to be an explosion, and you need cover. Wow. Huh. We're about to have a big boom, aren't we? Oh no, my lord, Lot begged. You have been so gracious to me and saved my life, and you have shown me such kindness, but I cannot go to the mountains. Disaster would catch up to me there, and I would soon die. See, there is a small village nearby. Please let me go there instead. Don't you see how small it is? Then my life will be saved. I wonder what's wrong with the mountains to him. All right, the angel said, I will grant your request. I will not destroy the little village. But hurry, escape to it, for I can do nothing until you arrive there. Lot reached the village just as the sun was rising over the horizon. Then the Lord rained down fire and burning sulfur from the sky on Sodom and Gomorrah. He utterly destroyed them along with the other cities and villages of the plain, wiping out all people and every bit of vegetation. But Lot's wife looked back as she was following behind him, and she turned into a pillar of salt. Boy, he's a confusing one. I always kind of interpreted this part metaphorically, like if you're escaping a life of sin, if you've gotten out of some hellhole, if the idea is that you need to totally move on from it, and any sentiment towards it, metaphorically looking back or physically looking back to it, means that you're still attached to it and it will still have its grips on you. All the evil and sin that had consumed you there will still have its grips on you. And I think that's kind of what happens to Lot's wife here. In this case, she's literally turning into a pillar of salt. But I think for you and me, if we ever look back on a life of sin with sentiment, I think that's a negative thing and will metaphorically turn into a pillar of salt. Abraham got up early that morning and hurried out to the place where he had stood in the Lord's presence. He looked out across the plain towards Sodom and Gomorrah and watched as columns of smoke rose from the cities like smoke from a furnace. But God had listened to Abraham's request and kept Lot safe, removing him from the disaster that engulfed the cities on the plain. Lot and his daughters. Afterward, Lot left Zoar because he was afraid of the people there, and he went to live in the cave in the mountains and with his two daughters. One day the older daughter said to her daughter, there are no men left anywhere in this entire area, so we can't get married like everyone else, and our father will soon be too old to have children. Come, let's get him drunk with wine and we'll have sex with him. That way we will preserve our family line through our father. So the daughters are desperate to continue their lineage. There's no other men, so they're going to get their fathers drunk and have sex with them to procreate through him. I'm assuming they do not know about incest. I'm assuming they do not know that it's going to mess up the genetics doing that. So that night they got him drunk with wine, and the older daughter went in and had intercourse with her father. He was unaware of her lying down and getting up again. The next morning, the older daughter said to her younger sister, I had sex with her father last night. Let's get him drunk with wine again tonight, and you go in and have sex with him. That way we will preserve our family line through her father. So that night they got him drunk with wine again, and the younger daughter went in and had intercourse with him. As before, he was unaware of her lying down or getting up again. As a result, both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their own father. When the older daughter gave birth to a son, she named him Moab. He became the ancestor of the nation known as Moabites. When the younger daughter gave birth to a son, she named him Ben-Ami. He became the ancestor of the nation known as Ammonites. Watch this be a joke that the writers of this don't like the Moabites to Ammonites, so just to say their ancestry is born upon incest would be kind of an insult. Maybe not. Abraham deceives Abimelech. Abraham moved south in Negev and lived for a while between Kadesh and Shur, and then he moved on to Gerar. While living there as a foreigner, Abraham introduced his wife Sarah by saying, She is my sister. So King Abimelech of Gerar sent for Sarah and brought her to him at his palace. But that night God came to Abimelech in a dream and told him, You are a dead man, for that woman you have taken is already married. But Abimelech had not slept with her yet, so he said, Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Didn't Abraham tell me she is my sister? And she herself said, Yes, he is my brother. I acted in complete innocence. My hands are clean. In the dream, God responded, Yes, I know you are innocent. That's why I kept you from sinning against me, and why I did not let you touch her. Now return the woman to her husband, and he will pray for you, for he is a prophet. Then you will live, but if you don't return her to him, you can be sure that you and all your people will die. So are you spared from a bad deed if you are not aware of it, is maybe the question here. God is saying yes, and he's gotten intervening, kind of keeping Abimelech from doing the bad deeds. I wonder who actually tells him. I don't know. I wonder if Sarah gives in, or if Abraham has some super secret agent types that are coming in and telling Abimelech this. I'm not sure what's happening there. Or if this is reflective of a deeper idea that if you sin without knowing it's a sin, is it a sin? Should you be punished for it? Abimelech got up the next morning and quickly called all of his servants together. When he told them what had happened, his men were terrified. Then Abimelech called for Abraham. What have you done to us? He demanded. What crime have I committed that deserves treatment like this, making me and my kingdom guilty of this great sin? No one should ever do what you have done. Whatever possessed you to do such a thing? Abraham replied, I thought, this is a godless place. They will want my wife and will kill me to get her. And she really is my sister, for we both have the same father, but different mothers, and I married her. Yeah, I don't think they know what incest is back then. Yeah. When God called me to leave my father's home and to travel from place to place, I told her, do me a favor, wherever we go, tell the people that I am your brother. Then Abimelech took some of his sheep and goats, cattle, and male and female servants, and he presented them to Abraham. He also returned his wife Sarah to him. Then Abimelech said, look over my land and choose any place where you would like to live. And he said to Sarah, look, I'm giving your brother 1,000 pieces of silver in the presence of all these witnesses. This is to compensate you for any wrong I may have done to you. This will settle any claim against me, and your reputation is cleared. Yeah, Abimelech is like petrified. He's like, please don't kill me and my nation for tricking me and almost sleeping with your wife. Yeah. I wonder what God coming to you in a dream really feels like. Jeez. Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female servants, so that they could have children. Let's keep them from having children. The Lord had caused all the women to be infertile because of what happened with Abraham's wife, Sarah. Interesting. The birth of Isaac. The Lord kept his word and did for Sarah exactly what he had promised. She became pregnant, and she gave birth to a son for Abraham in his old age. This happened at just the time God said it would. And Abraham named their son Isaac. 8 days after Isaac was born, Abraham circumcised him as God had commanded. Abraham was 100 years when Isaac was born. And Sarah declared, God has brought me laughter. All who hear about this will laugh with me. Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse a baby, yet I have given Abraham a son in his old age? Yeah. Okay, Hagar and Ishmael are sent away. When Isaac grew up and was about to be weaned, Abraham prepared a huge feast to celebrate the occasion. But Sarah saw Ishmael, the son of Abraham, and her Egyptian servant Hagar, making fun of her son Isaac. So she turned to Abraham and demanded, get rid of that slave woman and her son. He is not going to share the inheritance with my son Isaac. I won't have it. So Sarah was obviously quite partial to her real son, who she miraculously had. Never did like Hagar. Hagar never liked Sarah. These two are obviously quite mad at each other. This has upset Abraham very much because Ishmael was his son. But God told Abraham, do not be upset over the boy and your servant. Do whatever Sarah tells you, for Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted. But I will also make a nation of the descendants of Hagar's son, because he is your son too. So Abraham got up early the next morning, prepared food and a container of water, and strapped them to Hagar's shoulders. Then he sent her away with her son, and she wandered aimlessly in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water was gone, she put the boy in the shade of a bush. Then she went and sat down by herself about 100 yards away. I want to watch the boy die, she said. She burst into tears. I guess she's kind of wandering aimlessly homeless, and now assuming they're going to starve to death when the water's gone. Yeah, they're both fading away. But God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven. Hagar, what's wrong? Don't be afraid. God had heard the boy crying as he lies there. Go to him and comfort him, for I will make a great nation from his descendants. Then God opened Hagar's eyes, and she saw a well full of water. It's there the whole time. She quickly filled her water container and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy as he grew up in the wilderness. He became a skillful archer, and he settled in the wilderness of Paran. His mother arranged for him to marry a woman from the land of Egypt. Abraham's covenant with Abimelech. About this time, Abimelech came with Phicol, his army commander, to visit Abraham. God is obviously with you, helping you in everything you do, Abimelech said. Swear to me in God's name that you will never deceive me, my children, or any of my descendants. I have been loyal to you, so now swear that you'll be loyal to me and to this country where you are living as a foreigner. Abraham replied, yes, I swear to it. And Abraham complained to Abimelech about a well that Abimelech's servants had taken by force from Abraham's servants. This is the first time I've heard of it, Abimelech answered. I have no idea who is responsible. You have never complained about this before. Abraham then gave some of his sheep, goats, and cattle to Abimelech, and they made a treaty. But Abraham also took 7 additional female lambs and set them off by themselves. Abimelech asked, why have you set these 7 apart from the others? Abraham replied, please accept these 7 lambs to show your agreement that I dug this well. Then he named the place Beersheba, which means well of the oath, because that was where they had sworn the oath. After making their covenant at Beersheba, Abimelech left with Phicol, the commander of his army, and then they returned home to the land of the Philistines. Then Abraham planted a tamarisk tree at Beersheba, and there he worshipped the Lord, the eternal God. And Abraham lived as a foreigner in Philistine country for a long time. Abraham's faith tested. Sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. Abraham, God called. Yes, he replied, Hineni, here I am. Take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will show you. The next morning Abraham got up early. He saddled his donkey and took 2 of his servants with him, along with his son Isaac. Then he chopped the wood for a fire for a burnt offering and set out for the place God had told him about. On the third day of their journey, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. "Stay here with the donkey," Abraham told the servants. "The boy and I will travel a little farther. We will worship there, and then we will come back." So he's lying to them too. So Abraham placed the wood for the burnt offering on Isaac's shoulders, while he carried himself the fire and the knife, as two of them walked on together. Isaac turned to Abraham and said, "Father." "Yes, my son." "We have the fire and the wood," the boy said, "but where is the sheep for the burnt offering?" "God will provide the sheep for the burnt offering, my son," Abraham answered, and they both walked on together. So he's lying to his son, trying to carry this out. Reasonable, because Isaac would probably be like, "What the hell?" When they arrived at the place where God had told him to go, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on it. Then he tied his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. And Abraham picked up the knife to kill his son as a sacrifice. At that moment, the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Yes," Abraham replied, "here I am." "Don't lay a hand on the boy," the angel said. "Do not hurt him in any way, for now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son." Then Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught by its horns in the thicket. So he took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering in place of his son. Abraham named the place Yahweh Yireh, which means the Lord will provide. To this place, people still use that name as a proverb. On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. Then the angel of the Lord called again to Abraham from heaven. "This is what the Lord says. Because you have obeyed me and have not withheld even your son, your only son, I swear by my own name that I will certainly bless you. I will multiply your descendants beyond number, like the stars in the sky and the sands on the seashore. Your descendants will conquer the cities of their enemies, and through your descendants all the nations of the earth will be blessed, all because you have obeyed me." They then returned to their servants and traveled to Beersheba, where Abraham continued to live. Soon after this, Abraham heard that Milcah, his brother Nahor's wife, had borne Nahor 8 sons. The oldest was named Uz, the oldest was Buz, followed by Kemuel, ancestors of the Armenians, we'll see. Kesed, Chazal, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel became father of Rebekah. In addition to these 8 sons from Milcah, Nahor had 4 other children from his concubine, Reumah. Their names were Teba, Geham, Tahash, and Maacah. Alright. I'll be curious of what the interpretations later are. There's a couple ways of looking at this. The obvious one on the surface is that Abraham's willing to sacrifice his son for God, and God appreciates it. God thanks him for putting God first above everything else. Alternatively, this also could symbolically mean the end of human sacrifice, which I'm wondering culturally if that was an offering, if that was an option of how to get good favor. Obviously, a lot of cultures are going to have human sacrifice to try to make the weather better and things like that. And it's a load of bullshit. So I'm wondering if that is the end of that ritual, at least around Abraham's time, at least in that part of the world. Who knows? Alright, well, that's been this portion. Not a whole lot to glean out of it. I know Sodom and Gomorrah and the Binding of Isaac are both interesting stories. I imagine there is a whole lot of depth behind them because there's probably entire books written about those parts. But just based off this kind of plain translation, there's not a whole lot to glean out of it. As far as the stories of Sodom and Gomorrah go, you can break it down to just natural sin naturally destroys itself. That a city full of sin will naturally crumble. Alternatively, it could be that an actual asteroid or a nuclear blast of some sort vaporized the cities because of how bad they were. I don't know. Yeah, the Binding of Isaac might just be the end of human sacrifice, or just a proof of putting God above all else, even your family, which is interesting in modern times as far as having a relationship with God and putting your family before it. God's certainly in charge, but I don't know. I guess God hasn't told me to sacrifice anyone yet, so I'm not really sure what the weight of that is quite yet. But we'll see how it goes. Until then, next time, peace.